This is what I learned by going to the best engineering school in the world and graduating with the number one major offered at the school. And it's going to be a controversial topic if you're an academic, but I graduated from Georgia Tech with a degree in industrial engineering. And what that really means for anyone that doesn't know, it's basically just optimizing processes where industrial, so back in the day, your Toyotas, Hyundais, how to optimize that supply chain to basically decrease costs and minimize just outflows of garbage and wastage, and how do you increase profits? And the flip side of that in today's world is basically understanding through mathematics, statistics, and all of these type of inputs. Okay, like given this input, what is that output? So how do we now optimize the inputs? Because today it's more technical and more data driven in terms of anything regarding literally any process. So what I learned is really starting at the beginning because I had a worldview that I was like politically not correct to say this, but I was not, let's say, the smartest. Okay, I thought I was dumb as rocks growing up. And the reason is my brain was all over the place. I was just, having basically any child or kid life, but a lot of my life was basically told like, yo, stop talking, sit down, like focus, concentrate on all these things. And it's not like other, you're just a kid. It's common feedback, right? But as the years went on, I was like, all right, well, school validation, I was not studying because I didn't know, what to do or how to do, X to get, grades, let's say, which is crazy because eventually I got into Georgia Tech and I'll get there. But until like my, teenage years, it was the whole, like getting D's in math, like to say that. And then this guy went on to do what he did. Like it's crazy for me to say that and like say it out loud. And I just didn't have any process around like, okay, homework equals like doing the repetitions and then the next step and studying for a test. Like it is what it is. It is what it was rather. And in my life, I was born and raised, let's just say New York, California, very high level, and went to high school years in India for high school. And that's when everything changed. And the cultural impact of this is really what got me to where I am. And this is not one of those like, oh, pro everything, not America. But what it is there's a stereotype in the black communities. I'm not black, I'm Indian. But in America, the and poorer communities just happen to have black/Hispanics. It is just what it is. I'm stating fact. And in those communities, it is a common kind of stereotype/slash saying like, oh, if you're really getting good grades, if you're studying all the time, if you're always inside and not outside, fooling around and etc. It's a stereotype, but it's basically like, what a nerd. Look at him with his, high-waisted pants and glasses going like this and studying. And, it's kind of like, why are you being a nerd? It's looked down upon. It's not looked at as, wow, he's smart or she's smarter, they're smarter, etc. The flip side, in the Asian communities in America, there's a lot of pressure and stress because it's all about, oh, weird immigrants. We came over from wherever, whenever, and now our kids have to keep it going. And how are they going to keep it going? You got to maximize what the system has to offer, which as an immigrant mindset, it's taught to be jobs. Of course, there's a lot of entrepreneurial endeavors too, or even like, if you open your own practice by being a dentist, being a doctor, those are things that are nowadays just more accessible, more realistic, more happening as well. But in general, it was job, aka education equals job, job equals money equals happy life, happy wife, happy kids, and the American dream. This video is not about the American dream being, real or not, and that's its own video. But all of this means that when I went to high school in India, I basically felt the same. I was like, I don't know the processes. I'm like, stupid and like I'm dumb and all these things. And over there, it's just normal to study. Like, not in the bad way, not in the weird way, not in the, oh, I have to study, my life sucks. No, it is so normalized to study that if you actually get less than, let's say, 90%, 80%, you're considered like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're not even cool enough to be one of us because to be cool or accepted is like your grades are check mark, like you're good, right? And then you can hang, you can play, you can have fun and all those things. But even your peers, if your grades are slipping and you're just having fun, it's like almost like, yo, this guy needs to study. Like, hey man, how can I help you study? Like, okay, like let's all just, be good here and then we can have fun. Like that is the culture that I grew up with. And now, it's more than 10 years from that, so cultures change and that's fine, maybe it's different, maybe it's not. Point being that I basically was, accepted into a system to just do the thing. But I didn't realize like doing this thing, just like any school or, general government structure, like school is there to create workers for the big corporations, the government, etc. And I didn't know all of that rhetoric and story. I was just doing the thing that my peers were doing because it was like literally peer pressure, but peer pressure to study and do good habits, not like actually waste time dilly dallying and all of this. Now, eventually, got the good process, got the good grades when it mattered, all the high school grades and all the things, and I got into tech. And what I realized is, okay, so like I'm here now and I want to do business and economics. That was always my background. And in the end, you could say like I chose engineering just because of the background. Because it's if you're not a doctor, lawyer, engineer, then what are you in the Indian American subculture of professions and stuff like this, traditionally speaking? And nowadays things are different, but it was tougher back then. And before then, generation wise, I'm sure it was even more like if you're not this, then you're useless. You're a waste. That's literally the terminology. You're like your life sucks, basically. So what I learned is now I'm around these people, all the engineers, and I'll call them nerds because I was there too, right? And I realized I was like, dude, wait a second. Like, I'm really appreciative that I'm surrounded by smart people, but what they want to talk about and what they think about, I really don't think like that. I'm more like, look at the macro trends, the global economy, and like look at, how does that move your capital markets and that type of thing, like how to make money from money, how to transact with money, how can you be a broker for all money transactions and, optimize that type of everything. And then maybe along the way, because you're a broker, you get some cut and this and that. So my brain was definitely more like money equals more money equals, all of the things. And around me was all like, hey, let's build, the next, spaceship, like the next Tesla, the next, all of that. And I was like, that's cool, but like I don't really want to devote my life like to this. Like to me, I look at it like they're scientists and engineers and PhDs. Like you go do that. Like you do that. I'll consume a product, if anything, by earning the money and spending my money, but I'm not going to spend my time on this innovative solution. And of course, I know the flip side argument is you can have these things and, create a lot of money in the market just by, selling the idea of, AI, of, Theranos, where you have like one drop of blood and you can test, all the things in the world and, all of that, right? Although it doesn't seem related, the reason this all matters is because you're basically surrounded by people that you don't really want to be around. And so I was always looking at other basic communities, like what are like, let's say you want to get onto Wall Street at Georgia Tech. At the time, you had like, certain like investments committee and certain clubs, and they were awesome. Don't get me wrong. Like without that, like some folks, like that's where they end up transferring schools or otherwise. And there's also big stereotypes like folks that go to MIT, Georgia Tech, probably Caltech, all of these, bigger engineering schools like pure like STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. These type of majors, they basically may not be performing at that engineering level. And so then they take something called at Georgia Tech, we call it the M trend. You take the management trend. So you're an engineer and then you go to management. And the funny thing here is like I wanted to do management in the first place, but ended up becoming an engineer. And what I learned is, all right, well, the same thing that school teaches you, right? You go to high school, and if you learn a trade, you can make 35, 50 an hour, what have us. But when you basically have your bachelor's, then you can get like X type of, job. And traditionally, if you have an MBA or a master's, then you can get more salary and you're a manager. And, traditionally speaking, and nowadays, MBAs are not worth what they were before. If you're a PhD and you're looking for a job in the corporate market, the same skill set really doesn't apply. Like you're someone who's grinding, let's say, sitting down and researching and all the things, unless you're presenting or communicating or connecting others or what basically real business is about, where, it's who you know and then how much are you transacting in terms of value, whether it's money or, the concepts. And then that's basically attracting slash, you're putting yourself, positioning yourself to either earn more money, whether that's through deploying your capital or funding in terms of raising funding like venture capital, private equity, and all of these type of investment banking, adjacent fields. So what I learned from Georgia Tech was now I'm here. I got into the club, but did I want to stay in the club? Clearly, I graduated, and afterwards, I got a couple internships along the way, and without Georgia Tech, it would not have happened. So cash flow was happening, which is what I cared about, and I was able to use that cash flow to then trade, invest, invest into assets by knowing that okay, if the stock market closes at 9:30 to 4, if those are the opening hours, and I can't do jack after or before other than research, the cryptocurrency markets are 24/7, and it's a very very similar skill set in terms of knowing the news, being able to read the charts, and then rinse and repeat. And I'm not saying it's a one to one. But if you have interest, then what's wrong with that? And there's markets like foreign exchange, like Forex, commodities trading. Like I'm not really interested in that side, but I know that if I needed to, it's probably very similar. It's just the nature of the what we're talking about is a little bland for your boy. Let's put it like that. And so I was able to earn income through basically having a degree and doing what I wanted with said money. Because if I didn't, then I mean, nothing changes, right? You get to a good school, whatever. Now you get a job, and where you went to school, nobody cares about it afterwards. Literally, it's like you went to UMich or Harvard, or you went to some community college. In the end of the day, that person could be your boss. Like that's just the real world. That's just life. And going to Georgia Tech, it's obviously a blessing. But did I take away what I wanted to? The truth is, it's not Georgia Tech's fault. Like this video is coming now to me, my personal purview of, all right, I don't think, and when you're 18 and there's all of this assumptions like taking millions of dollars of student loans or hundreds of thousands, like when you're 18, you can't do a lot of stuff like drink, but you can take out, X amount of money. And that's a debt driven society. That's just the world we're living in. And that's how it's set up. And this is all not taught when you're young because they want you to feed into the system and they know how you're a child of the system and all the things, right? So what I took away is at the time I didn't know what I wanted. So if anything, I was lucky just going with the flow and ending up by literally graduating from the best engineering school in the world, best major. And where I am now wouldn't have happened without it. But at the same time, I know there's multiple, numerous ways it would have happened without it. And I always tell myself, man, if I didn't go 4 years degree, I'm like a salesman, a hustler, all the things, I could have made a lot more. Do I regret it? Absolutely not. Because the resources I earned, in other words, money, through this background allowed me to do a lot of things, whether it's with my family, future families, so many things. So fine, that's what it is. And now I can only go upwards even more in my head. Or if I stop, guess what? Got the degree, got the job, keep it going, streamlined, do nothing, go retire and spend your retirement days and 2 weeks of PTO a year. Oh, I can't take off. Oh, I'm not remote. Oh, I gotta go to the office 5 days a week. All this garbage and nonsense. So, anyways, it's all about control in the system. And this video went from Georgia Tech, what I took away, to the fact of whether it's Georgia Tech or you went to Harvard or anything, what does it really matter? Because you have to back yourself in the end, or else you'll always be reliant on the corporate systems or the government or everything here to go earn money. But actually, you can do it much better, not by weaseling yourself out by just like asking people for money, but adding value, which is such a high level term which I struggled with. But really, it's what is the problem that exists in society? Can you solve it? Do you want to or not? And you can just work your job, and that's fine. Or you can work your job and in the night times solve said problem and eventually, figure that part out. So all in all, Georgia Tech was amazing. Would I do it over again? I don't think anyone in their right mind would do it over again because there's no reason to do it one more time because it wasn't easy whatsoever. And through that, struggle and this and that, you probably grow as well. But to be honest, I was able to study, and I always tell people, you want a 4.0 GPA at Georgia Tech? It's not hard. Nothing's hard, but it's balancing the priorities between having a social life. If you're in Greek culture, like fraternities and sororities, it's a balance between, okay, where are you going to spend your time if you're not studying? And, what are you doing in terms of activities? Are you just, wasting your time and this and that? That's more of a life thing. So overall, if you came this far, you're thinking about going to tech, hit me up. I'll put a link in the description below. But, if you're an alum or, you're looking for next steps, happy to, give my input. At the same time, going to Georgia Tech it really wasn't the best time of my life, but it was the time I think was necessary for naturally me to come to this point. And you can kind of see it in my face. Like, I really don't care. Like, that chapter is closed and never again. So thanks for coming to the end.